Abroad Pod.
Hello, listener, and thank you so much for joining us on this 53rd edition of the Teaching Abroad Pod. I'm your host, Rowan, and joining me as co-host is Ashley from our operations department. How are things going with you, Ashley?
Very well, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, good. No complaints.
That sounded hesitant.
I was just thinking about the snow and
Oh, yes. It is winter in Canada.
how it's been so unpredictable, but I've gotten a few ski days in so far, so looking forward to more. Come on, snow, get over here.
Yes, it can stay for winter activities and then it can promptly leave when we're done with those.
I think most people agree with you on that. They're looking forward to a snowless March.
Yes, I was talking with my family this morning. I don't love spring until the grass is dry. Then I can appreciate it. So we need to get there.
So our guest today is longtime Korea teacher Susan Day, who's looking to head back after a brief sojourn back in America. And I myself taught in Korea a while back. Did you spend any time in Korea at all?
Only a little bit. When I was flying to England from New Zealand, we actually opted to do a free stopover for a couple of days. So we stayed in Seoul, which was really pretty. So I didn't obviously get to see as much as I probably would have loved, but it was nice. I mean, the street food itself is reason enough to go even for a little bit.
It's like my, even more than my experience with Japan. My only real memories of Japan are Narita Airport and just being amazed by the toilets in the washroom and the things you can buy in vending machines.
It's so true. I will say though, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we flew with Korean Air, and that was probably the best airplane food I've ever had. It's so random, but they served bibimbap on the plane, and it was delicious. Yeah,
I fell in love with Japanese curry on my flight.
Oh,
When I got back to Canada, I was like, where do I find this Japanese curry? I have to make it.
Oh, I love it.
On the topic of Korea, apparently one of the big hits out of Korea in recent years, Squid Game, is coming back to Netflix for a second season later this year. Are you a fan?
I've never seen it. Have you?
Yeah, I binge watched.
Oh, really?
Season. And I am a sucker for dystopian future flicks, so I might be convinced to pay the increased Netflix price, at least for a month or so, to get my Squid Game fix.
Just get the basics, so it's just one device, then it doesn't hurt so bad.
Yes. I definitely stopped paying for Netflix when everything's increasing the prices. I'm like, okay, I gotta choose like two or three services and that's it.
Yeah, it hurts. It does.
Also on the topic of Big K returns, as I mentioned, we've got an interview coming up momentarily with EFL teacher Susan Day, who is likely on her way back to Korea shortly. And I'm really excited to be hearing about what's inspired her to go back for more of the teaching life in Seoul. But first, a word from our sponsor.
With Oxford Seminars, starting your new career teaching ESL couldn't be easier. Oxford Seminars has trained more than 70,000 teachers over the past 30 years, and you could be next. Our comprehensive 120-hour program starts with live instruction from an experienced ESL teacher, followed by convenient online modules. If your goal is to relocate overseas or even teach from the comfort of your own home, Oxford Seminars' renowned lifetime job placement service will get you where you want to be. Right now, you can get $50 off your Oxford Seminars TESOL TESOL TEFL course price when paying in full by calling 1-888-225-2480 and giving the code TEACHINGABROADPOD. Visit oxfordseminars.com today to find out more.
Welcome back, listener. We are glad to have with us today experienced EFL teacher Susan Day to tell us all about the highlights of living and teaching in Korea. She earned a BA in Japanese and International Studies from Findlay University before embarking on a journey of over 8 years of teaching English in Korea starting way back in 2015. Welcome to the pod, Susan.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. Before we get to Korea,
Mhm,
I see that your degree involves Japanese studies, and I've been
mhm,
told you did study abroad, doing a stint in Japan during college. Why did
mhm.
you end up with a teaching career in Korea as opposed to Japan?
That's a really good question, actually. So my mom is Japanese, and I have lived my whole life, being exposed to both American culture and Japanese culture. I'm half American and half Japanese, and there is a kind of like identity crisis that I think a lot of people who are mixed go through, because you don't really like belong entirely to one culture, or you not saying that you don't belong, but you don't feel like you fit in entirely in one or entirely another. And I was like, a very good example of this identity crisis, and even to the point where I made it my responsibility almost to learn Japanese, like formally learn Japanese, do a thesis in Japanese and all of that, study in Japan, and only to think like, oh, I don't really belong here in Japan either. So, which was a really big conflict to have in your life at about 20. And luckily, when you're in college, you get to meet a whole bunch of people, not just like within that country, but there's a lot of students who come from abroad. And when I was studying in Japan, I made quite a few Korean friend students, Korean friends, Korean student friends. And because of that, I was starting to get exposed to Korean culture. And to the point even where I went to my friend's house over like the spring break in Korea, in Seoul, Korea. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. I kind of started switching gears and like, I really like this culture. It kind of almost feels like the country version of me. It's not 100% Western. It's not 100%, East Asian culture because of all of the influence from like the military base and post-Korean War. There's a lot of mix between the two, and it kind of felt comforting to me. So that's kind of what kickstarted me into thinking like, oh, I want to explore a life here. And I did, and I liked it so much that I just kept staying. And 8 years later, here I am.
That kind of leads into my next question, which was, considering you taught in Korea for over 8 years and judging by the fact you're looking to go back after less than a year back in America, you must have quite liked it. What is it about Korea that makes it a good place to live and teach?
Of course, it's different for everyone. For me personally, it was there's a whole bunch of reasons, but one of that is, like I mentioned before, the mix of Eastern and Western cultures that just kind of mixed in a way that fit with me. But if you want to consider other factors, especially living in Seoul, it's a very convenient place to live, like lifestyle wise. There is a bunch of different modes of public transportation. Even if you don't really understand Korean that well, it's pretty easy to, not easy, but you can navigate your way around the city. You can do whatever you want, really. Like you can sign up for gym classes, you can go to any restaurant without really a lot of trouble. There is also a pretty big foreign community there that will help you create your own community, your own group of friends, your own support system. That I think it is a pretty easy place to live, and you don't really have to worry about some of the struggles that you might have to worry about if you live in like America. So like the public transportation thing, having a third place to go to, and I say third places in like other than house and work. There's so many different third places that you can go and socialize.
Love that. What are some of the places you recommend people visit in terms of sightseeing while in East Asia?
For Korea specifically, and specifically in Seoul, There are so many touristy places that you can visit, and you don't even have to go out of your way really to go see them because they are so central. One place that I always take, like whoever might be visiting, whether it's like my sisters or a family member or a friend that's visiting me, is the Namsan Tower, because it is like almost in the middle of Seoul, and you can get a beautiful view of the skyline, whether it's at night or during the day. Unless it's kind of like, cloudy that day, you might not be able to see that much, but it's still like a wonderful experience. And even just getting there, you'll have to pass through like the Myeongdong city market. So you have like, I'm pretty sure you've probably seen it on the news at some point, where there's a bunch of little shopping places and like the food street. So it's just kind of like its own little adventure while you're getting to the top of the tower. And it's also very close to like the palace area. Not that close, but it's still, maybe like a few stops away on the subway line. You can go to the palace. A lot of people, especially if you're a girl, you might want to try on the hanbok, traditional Korean clothes, and take a few cute pictures while you're there. It's an experience that you won't have other places, and so I definitely recommend doing that while you're there.
And what about food and drink? Do you have any top recommendations for those going to Korea?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Korea has so much, like so many dishes that you can choose from, and it might not always fit your taste, but I really recommend trying a little bit of everything. Um, of course, there's, world-renowned kimchi, which will make its appearance in any dish, a lot of the dishes. So you don't really have to go out of your way to try that. It will just come to you. If you are a little bit squeamish to, like, say, seafood or textures, bibimbap is a pretty safe place to start. And bibimbap is just basically like rice, hot rice, and then there's like a variety of things on top of the rice, and you just kind of mix it. So whether that be like a seasonal vegetable, of course, kimchi is going to be there. It all depends on the season too, what ends up being on top of the rice, but it's, it always slaps.
There always seems to be an egg. Isn't there always an egg on the
Yes,
bibimbap?
there is an egg, like right in the middle, which kind of makes it like all come together.
What is the housing situation like in the schools that you've taught at Korea? And how would you describe the apartments teachers are provided?
Okay, it can go two ways. So most schools, if not like all schools, are going to provide housing for the teacher. And sometimes that's good. And sometimes it's a little worn. And I'm going to say worn because they've just kind of recycled that room because they essentially rent out that room. It's their room. So they just kind of had other teachers go through it before use, and you can kind of feel that. And that is, if you don't want to go that route, that is perfectly okay, because again, schools will probably understand that. So they'll offer you the option of taking that room, or they'll give you an allowance, a housing allowance of sometimes it's like $500 USD, so like 500,000 won. I'm just giving a rough estimate because it's different in every school, and you can use that housing allowance to go find your own place. It doesn't have to be close to the school. It can be however far you want. Some neighborhoods are more affordable than others. I haven't personally done that, but I have a lot of friends who have, because they want their own place, like their own from scratch, something that is their own. And then you can use that allowance to help you find another place and pay not all of it, but at least a portion of your rent at the other place.
I think that was a very polite way you said that sometimes they're worn, because my apartment in Korea was a mess. Like my wife, who I met in Korea, she got a beautiful brand new building. Like I was so jealous. But mine was more than worn. Like I could not scrub the grease off the walls in the kitchen, but it was free, which I did
Yes.
appreciate. So kind of on that note, and in terms of money, How far will a teacher's salary take you these days in Korea? How much would you say you could save each month if living a fairly reasonable lifestyle?
I feel like, and I say I feel like because I have a different experience, I think from some teachers that go abroad to Korea to teach, I feel like you would be able to save quite a bit because the cost of living is more affordable, I think, than living in America. And that might just also be because you're not having to pay for a car and the maintenance of a car, and you don't have to pay too much for a rent because that's already housing is already pretty much provided. So you are able to save a lot more. And I say you are able to only because with my experience, I've just been paying my student loans. So every month I'm just kind of like cutting my salary in half. So, but even with, my student loans, I was still able to go out, have fun, live a life, even like, travel to Japan on occasion. So even while I'm paying student loans, I was still able to have a decent social life as well. And I feel like since I came back, I'm back in America for a bit. I don't feel like I had that luxury, and I didn't realize that because as soon as I graduated college, I've just been in Korea, and I didn't realize how those, extra costs that I'm paying for here in America really add up. So I believe you were able to save more if you
Well,
live
just in the
reasonably.
context of student loans, in a sense, that is
Mhm,
saving as well. I mean, that's what I did. I
mhm,
took about $1,000 a month out of my
mhm.
salary and put it towards my student loan. So I would say, like, at the time, I was quote unquote saving about $1,000 a month.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't have student loans, then I mean, like, more to you. So,
Yes.
but I think, yeah, a lot of people will find themselves in that situation.
And of course, it's lifestyle choices too, right? Some people go out a
Mhm.
lot more than other people or go out to different kinds of places. I mean, I discovered in my first week, okay, I'm not going to go to Pizza Hut because a pizza is $20, or I can go to pizza school and it's $5 for the same size of pizza, right? So you kind of learn where to
Exactly.
go to save your money.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Did you find it easy or difficult to make friends and build a social group in Korea?
That's a really good question. Yes and no. And it really depends on where you are, I think, or how willing you are to go out. So if you're an introvert, it might take a little bit of inner muscle strength. So my first year in Korea, I went to a school that only had one other foreign teacher. And then eventually they had to lay off the one foreign teacher. So then it was just me and a whole bunch of Korean teachers, which is fine. There's pros and cons to that. But as much as you want to connect with the people of that country, there's always going to be some kind of barrier. And I found this in Japan as well, because you're different and you have different life experiences than they do. So, of course, I have Korean friends. Of course, I am close to some Korean teachers that I've worked with in the past, and we still talk to this day and we still hang out. But there's just something about connecting with another foreigner, another person who has the same experiences as you. So my first year, being the only foreign teacher, it was really hard, and an introvert as well. So it was really hard for me to go out and actively find these, people like me to hang out with. But my next school that I transferred to had a bigger foreign teacher population. And then the next school had an even bigger foreign teacher population. And I think that has really helped me find the people who I consider my best friends even till today, because we kind of just organically started connecting over the same things, not just work, but like, living in a foreign country, the struggles and the challenges, but also the wins that we have in living in a foreign country together. So if you're someone who is like me and very introverted and finding it very hard to go out, I recommend maybe finding a school that has a bigger foreign teacher community or population. That way you can at least, even if you don't like, you're not on a friend level, you can still connect with those people, ask questions, maybe talk to them about what struggles that they might have, and they understand what it's like to be a foreigner. So they're going to, I'm pretty sure, at least the people that I've met, most of the people, if not all of them, have been very welcoming and very open to, getting to know you and helping you along the way. And then if you end up at a school that is very small and you are the only foreign teacher, maybe try signing up for classes like a gym class, or like these days there's more and more like Korean learning classes. And that's two of the things that I did in my first year. It was like take gym classes, go to Korean classes, just so that I am seeing other people that are like me or like in similar situations, and I'm going outside of like the work group kind of setting.
Very good advice. Back to the sightseeing front, I guess. So
Mhm.
for me, one of the really cool places to visit while living in Korea was the DMZ, learning all
Oh.
about the tunnels that were discovered coming from the north, and just kind of looking over the border into North Korea and imagining what life must be like there. They told us this kind of funny story about the flag poles and why the North Korean flag is slightly higher than the South Korean flag. And um, went to Dorisan Station and heard about all of the things they were doing with sending workers into the factories in the north and all the hope of reunification. So it was all quite a mind-blowing experience for me, I guess. And
Mm.
then I noticed you were part of the founding of a Link Liberty in North Korea chapter at your university. So again, I'm imagining it must be a subject very close to your heart as well. Uh,
Mhm.
do you think there's so much hope for reunification with the rhetoric coming out of Kim Jong-un these days?
Um, hmm.
It's a big question. I'm sorry to
It
throw this
is.
at you as
No,
a
no, no.
as a teacher in
It's
South
okay.
Korea, but a lot of people kind of wonder, how are things going on that front? Any insight would be appreciated.
Yeah, so I was a part of that Link chapter, I guess, in my school before I went to, work in Korea. So I didn't really know what the opinion was, like the public opinion was in South Korea. I knew what it was, for American people because we have our own kind of like view just from what we get in the news, and mostly just what we get in the news because, you're not really going to meet someone from North Korea or even South Korea that often here. So I kind of found that the public opinion really is different depending on the generation. The older generation seems to be more hopeful, I guess, or wanting to reunify, or had not wanting to, but sees it as a possibility. And I know what year was it? 2018, 2019, when they had their election, the president at the time, or the candidate to be president at the time, who then became the president, made some beautiful remarks about like the possibility of reunifying or having like more positive outlooks, sorry, towards North Korea. And I remember one of my Korean co-teachers at the time, who was a older lady, and we've talked a lot. We're still friends, but she was speaking about it as if it was very touching to her. That speech was very touching to her. But the younger generation, like people around my age or our age, or even a little bit younger, it's kind of like they just see North Korea as a distant cousin that they don't really have too strong opinions of, maybe because they don't feel like they can, or it's just always been a factor in their life. Like, this situation has always just been in the back of your mind, but it's not something that they really think
Mm.
too much about. And South Korea has always been South Korea to them. So the possibility is not as strong, I think. There's no
Good
like negative or
analogy.
positive.
The distant
Yeah,
cousin. It's like, I know my wife has this cousin from Manila who I've never met and they exist, but I may never meet them.
yeah, it's kind of there's no like negative or like extremely negative or extremely positive, just like, oh, that's there, you know.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
In terms of classroom teaching, what were your student ages and class sizes in Korea?
That varied a lot. So I taught as young as kindergarten. Well, kindergarten can also vary. So like Korean age 7-year-old, and I say Korean age because I don't know if it's been aged out yet. I don't know.
I heard
But
that. Yeah, this year, right? They were gonna
yeah,
stop giving people 1 year at birth.
yeah, I don't know if that's been transitioned through yet or not, but for the longest time, it's a lot of things have been Korean age, whatever. So add on a year to your life when you're there. So Korean age 7, I taught all the way up to even like a little bit of high school, but not primarily high school. So mostly, I would say most of my experience is like elementary school, middle school, but I have had experience with high school and kindergarten. Oh, and class size also varied. I think the biggest I had was maybe like 14 kids, and then as small as like 2 to 3 kids. So
What strategies did you use to keep Korean children focused and engaged in the lesson? And would you recommend any different strategies to reach middle school students as opposed to kindergartners?
oh yeah, absolutely. Middle school, elementary school, and kindergarten are 3 entirely different beings, I'd say. And the energy that you have to put into each age group, even within like elementary school, you could have elementary school first grade, which is essentially kindergarten, but like with a little bit of a twist. And then you could have elementary sixth grade, which is basically middle school, but with all of the audacity. Like, so each age group has requires a very different energy from you. So the younger ones, you're gonna be way more, I think, I'm gonna say physical. You are basically acting for the group because their attention span is not that long. And fair enough, because mine isn't either. But you have to kind of be, I don't know, not class clown, because you don't want to be too silly. You want to be taken seriously as like the adult, the leader in the room, but you want to keep their attention and have it for as long as the class is. As you get older, you don't need to have all this energy in your presentation as much as you did when you're teaching someone younger. You're going to have to be more settled, establish yourself as the, the top person in the room upon entering, with the older students, because especially I found with, if they're boy students, they're going to want to test you. That's just life, and I think that translates to multiple cultures: Korea, Japan, America. You're gonna be tested when they're older because they're, trying to see what they can get away with. So it's a different kind of output from yourself.
No, it's very true for sure. One final question we like to
Mhm.
ask our guests who have taught abroad is, what advice do you have for anyone who is thinking of getting certified and going overseas, but is maybe on the fence, debating if it's worth their time and money?
I think that if you're a person who is very interested in the world of outside of what you know, like your country, your, hometown, I think that this is a very valuable thing to have and use to your benefit to explore the world. That being said, traveling abroad, not traveling, but going abroad, when you go abroad to work, that new place becomes your home. That new place becomes your everyday reality. And sometimes that's really hard because you are separated from what you know and your comfort space. So you have to, every day is like a challenge in some sort of sense, whether that is, trying to send something at the post office, which is not something that used to be hard because you could speak English, you know your way around the post office at your place. But if you go to the post office in Seoul, South Korea, it's entirely different. And that might be a challenge that, adds up and adds up and adds up to things that might be too hard for you. So, but if you think that those challenges are something that you want to go through and you want to explore and you're okay with going through those challenges, then absolutely. I really do. There's a benefit to going abroad and experiencing something new because it changes not only your perspective of the world, but it also changes something in you so that when you go back to what you know, you can feel the growth in yourself, I think.
Thank you very much for your very sage advice. That was great. And we really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Before we go, we do have a little job placement update for those job seekers who may be listening.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that schools in Korea are still mainly hiring for positions starting about April through June, and the public school programs will soon be interviewing for fall term starts. If you are looking to go to Korea within the next 6 months, be sure to get your fingerprint-based national criminal background check with apostille in hand, as well as your bachelor's degree copy with apostille, as schools only really consider candidates seriously who have their visa documents in hand. And just a couple of things to consider on the point of visa documents. So the FBI or RCMP criminal background check has to be fingerprint based and has to be less than 6 months old at the time of E2 visa application. And also, interestingly, Canada became a signatory to the Hague Convention, and as of January of this year, documents can be affixed with an apostille from Global Affairs in Ottawa or the provincial equivalent province, depending. And this removes a step from document authentication processes, as it will no longer need consular authentication from the country to which you are traveling to teach. I guess a caveat is, as long as the country you are going to is also a Hague signatory. But yeah, things to keep in mind for your visa docs for Korea.
Thanks as always for tuning in to the Teaching Abroad Pod. We're aiming to release new episodes monthly for the foreseeable future. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and your podcasting app of choice. If you have any great ideas you'd like to hear about in an upcoming episode, please send a message on Instagram or email us at teachingabroadpod@oxfordseminars.com. Thanks. Have a great week. Bye.